What if the people who leave you most drained are the ones you bent over backwards to be kind to? They never shout, never strike openly. Instead, they twist silence into a weapon, a missed reply, a smirk at your failure, a seed of doubt planted so carefully that you wonder if it came from your own mind. And when you finally react, they tilt their head as if you've lost control, as if you are the problem. Perhaps it's a colleague, perhaps it's family, perhaps it's someone who once held your heart. The shape changes, but the feeling remains the same, exhaustion wrapped in guilt. You were told to be good, to be patient, to keep the peace. Yet ask yourself, is that virtue or is it surrender? The Stoics would not confuse passivity with strength. They would remind you that kindness without discernment is self-erosion, that the first act of power is not conquering others, but refusing to be conquered within. Stay with me, because what follows is not theory, but the brutal art of reclaiming your peace from those who quietly feed on it. As we step into the first chapter, picture this. You're standing in front of someone who never raises their voice, never swings a fist, never shouts your name in rage, yet somehow you leave the room emptier than you entered. They don't seek to wound your skin. They seek to pierce your calm. They are patient hunters of your response. Every sigh you let escape, every hurried explanation you craft, every restless night rehearsing what you'll say tomorrow, these are the offerings they collect. You thought they wanted resolution, but what they wanted was rhythm, your predictability. They know you'll answer. They know you'll soften. They know you can't stand to be misunderstood. And so the cycle repeats. They act wounded, and you rush to mend. They accuse, and you find yourself apologizing. They turn cold and silent, and suddenly you're pacing, anxious, desperate to restore peace. But here is the cruel truth. What you think is peace is not peace. It is delay. It is a war postponed, and every postponement costs you a piece of yourself. Now imagine sitting across from them at the dinner table. You explain yourself again, as you've done countless times before. The words roll out like water through cupped hands, never held, never valued, always slipping. They tilt their head. They let you drown in your own explanations. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Yet here you are, handing that power away piece by piece with every attempt to justify your existence to someone who thrives on your unrest. You think you are preserving the bond, but you are preserving only their grip. You are trying to keep the light alive while they are studying how you burn. You must ask yourself, are you guarding harmony, or are you feeding your captor? Here's where the shift must happen. Your silence is not weakness, it is a weapon. When you choose not to answer, not to explain, not to soothe, the entire structure they've built trembles. Imagine a chess player who has studied every one of your predictable moves. They wait for the familiar countermove, the expected reaction. But this time, you stay still. You fold your arms. You walk away. You close the door without a sermon, without a warning, without guilt. For the first time, they have no move prepared. They wanted fire, and you gave them stone. They wanted your reaction, and you gave them nothing. Seneca reminded us that he who angers you conquers you. In refusing to respond, you refuse to be conquered. Your silence is not surrender. It is a blade so sharp it doesn't need to be swung. Consider the friend who always disappears until they need you, only to return with guilt as their gift. They sigh about your distance. They press you with questions, knowing you'll rush to assure them. You explain, you bend, you shrink. And every time you shrink, they grow. But then comes the day when you no longer explain. You simply say, "I'm not available." No reasons, no apologies, just stillness. They panic because the map they had of you is gone. The game has ended, and they never saw the ending coming. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote, "The most successful rulers are not the most virtuous. They are the ones who understand how the crowd reacts and control it from the shadows." Toxic people don't need your love. They need your hesitation. Remove it, and they are lost. From here, understand the principle clearly. Reaction is weakness. Intention is power. To move with intention is to reclaim what was yours all along. To act not from the tug of another's strings, but from the quiet command of your own center. This is what Epictetus called freedom, the ability to stand untouched when others seek to shake you. When you master this, you discover that the one who appears calm is not naive, but untouchable. The one who no longer trembles when accused, who no longer explains when misunderstood, who no longer apologizes for existing, this is the one who commands the field. Your silence, your refusal, your absence of explanation, these are not gaps. They are declarations. They say, without words, "You no longer own me." At this stage, let the lesson cut deep. Every move you make is a message. Every emotional twitch is a crack they seek to widen. When you rush to fix, you invite them to break again. But when you stay calm, when you remain unmoved, when you let silence answer for you, the cracks vanish. The blueprint is gone. You are no longer part of their script. You are the blank page they cannot fill. And that, more than anger, more than shouting, more than vengeance, is what they fear most. Because when you cease to be predictable, you cease to be theirs. The cage opens not with rage, but with stillness. This is where domination begins, not through noise, but through the art of withholding it. Reaction is their banquet, silence is their famine, and famine ends the empire. Moving into the second chapter, picture a fortress in the night, its walls high but its gates left ajar. You might believe you've built protection, but without enforcement, the walls mean nothing. Toxic people know this better than most. They don't charge the gates. They test. They wait. They slip through the cracks you refuse to seal. Every time you flinch, every time you explain, every time you soften your no, they learn that your gates are open, and open gates invite invasion. Now imagine the words you were taught since childhood. Don't be rude. Don't say no. Be agreeable. Keep everyone comfortable. You thought this was virtue, but what if it was only training to keep you pliable? Marcus Aurelius warned. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. You were taught to estimate yourself as less, to absorb discomfort quietly, to carry burdens that were never yours in the name of being good. But goodness without strategy is weakness, and weakness draws wolves. Here's where the shift becomes clear. Boundaries are not an appeal for respect. They are not moral speeches, nor emotional cries. They are strategy, the sharp edge of your blade. When sharpened, it rarely needs to be used. Let your no be simple, clean, final. Tell the needy friend, "I'm not available at your convenience anymore." Tell the coworker who drains you, "I don't respond to messages after hours." Tell the family member who lives on drama, "I will not engage with negativity today." Then stop. No nervous apology, no soft smile to cushion the blow. Just the gate, shut, locked, guarded. That is power. Consider the truth. Those who have benefited from your lack of boundaries will never celebrate when you grow a spine. They will call you cold. They will say you've changed. They will whisper that you are selfish. Good. Seneca once said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity." For he is not permitted to prove himself. Their accusations are proof that you are finally proving yourself. You no longer exist to make them comfortable. You exist to protect your peace. That peace is your kingdom. And like any kingdom, it must be guarded with discipline, defended with silence, and preserved with courage. Let's step into the subtler game. Toxic people don't always fight openly. They are patient chess players, moving diagonally across your nerves. They give the backhanded compliment, "Wow, you finally did something right." They sigh out the guilt trip, "Guess I'll just suffer alone since you're too busy." They deliver the silent treatment, a day without words to make you question your worth. They shift blame. "I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't provoked me." They triangulate, turning others against you while posing as neutral. These are not random moves. They are deliberate strokes in a quiet war. And the battlefield is your own steadiness. Picture how it begins. You second-guess yourself. You apologize when you did nothing wrong. You rehearse words in your head until dawn. You shrink, wondering if you are the problem. That is how the fortress falls, not by siege, but by corrosion. But here's the key. They can only run the game if you keep playing the same way. Every defensive word feeds the loop. Every plea for understanding fuels their control. They do not seek resolution. They seek reaction. From here, the path is clear. You break the pattern by standing still, by staying calm where they expected fire, by becoming unreadable where they expected apology. The Stoics taught that self-command is the only true command. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And mastery begins when you realize you owe no one an explanation for your peace. When you stop explaining, you stop bleeding power. When you refuse to feed the loop dissolves. At this stage, you must decide, will you remain the fortress with gates wide open, begging for invaders to be gentle? Or will you become the fortress whose silence, whose sharp boundaries, whose clean refusals leave no entry point? Remember this: good people get used, strategic people get respected, and respect is the only soil where peace can grow. The message closes with steel. No is not the start of a debate. It is the end of one. Hold the line, guard your gates. Because when you finally stop reacting, you don't just protect yourself, you end the war before it begins, and that is where the next lesson waits. Advancing to the third chapter, imagine a player waiting for you to pick up the same card again and again, knowing exactly how you'll move. That is how the manipulator survives, through your predictability. If they press and you argue, if they sulk and you soothe, if they accuse and you explain, the cycle spins endlessly. To break it, you must do what they never prepare for. You stop playing. Here's where the first shift comes. When they bait you, go still. Don't decorate your words. Don't pour fire or water. Speak like stone. That's your opinion. I see, noted, flat, calm, complete. They cannot build escalation on ground that does not move. Think of Epictetus reminding us, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Their hook is your reaction. When you refuse to supply it, the hook rusts in their hand. Now imagine the letter arrives, the message pings, the call flashes across your screen. Their game is speed. They want immediacy. They want you caught in urgency, but urgency is an illusion. Time is your ally. When provoked, delay. Let the flames starve. Let the night pass. What felt urgent becomes dust by dawn. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. By delaying, you change your estimate. You show yourself that nothing they send is more powerful than your command of time. From here, the third move emerges. Leave. When the air thickens with chaos, walk away. Say at once, "I'm not available for this conversation." Then rise and depart. No warning, no guilt, no performance. That one line carries more force than 1,000 justifications because it leaves them staring into the void of their own tactics with no fuel left to feed on. A soldier does not argue with the storm, he withdraws to higher ground. At this stage, understand their next maneuver. They will escalate. When you go still, they will press harder. When you withdraw, they will thrash louder. When you fall silent, they will try tears, rage, guilt, pity, not because they love you, because they are losing grip. Desperation is their final play. Do not be fooled. This is not a plea for reconciliation. It is the panic of a fisherman whose net has torn, and your task is not to mend it for them, but to let it sink. Here's where Stoic clarity holds you steady. Seneca warned, "He who is brave is free." To hold the line, you must embrace the discomfort of being called cruel, distant, cold. Let them shout into the silence. Let them throw stones at the walls that no longer open. Your duty is not to maintain their comfort. Your duty is to guard your peace. And peace is not guarded with endless words. Peace is guarded with stillness, with discipline, with the refusal to absorb chaos that does not belong to you. Consider a story. A woman I knew once tried to reason with a brother who thrived on drama. Every gathering ended with her tears, his outbursts, her long explanations, his quiet smirk. One day she did not explain. He accused. She said nothing. He raged. She walked into another room. He sulked. She carried on with her meal. At first he grew louder, desperate to stir the old pattern. But in time, he stopped. He could not play without a partner. She had finally broken the rhythm. Her silence was the victory she could never win through speech. This is the art. Neutrality. Delay. Exit. 3 simple moves that collapse an entire empire of manipulation. They collapse not because you conquered them, but because you ceased to be conquered. That is the paradox of strength. Sometimes the most powerful blow is the one you never swing. So hold the line. Be unreadable. Be untouchable. For when your patterns change, they are forced to face a truth they cannot bear. They no longer own the script. And when you become invisible to their games, you become unbreakable. This is not avoidance. This is mastery. And mastery is the only crown worth wearing. Entering the 4th chapter, imagine the board flipped in a single motion, the pieces scattered, the game ended not by victory, but by refusal to keep playing. This is the inversion move. You don't argue, you don't explain, you don't rescue, you withdraw, not in anger, but in clarity. Withdrawal becomes your sword, silence your armor. Toxic people live on engagement. Not your care, not your loyalty, but your reaction. They want you caught in orbit, forever circling their storms. The inversion move is stepping calmly out of that orbit, leaving them to spin alone. Now imagine the stillness. You're present, but untouchable. You're near, but impenetrable. You have become what they fear most, unreadable. In that moment, their entire script burns. Years of rehearsed tactics collapse into ash because you no longer supply the lines. You answer not with passion, but with minimalism. That doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. Or worse for them, nothing at all. That silence is not emptiness. It is a wall higher than any argument you could ever build. And in facing that wall, they rage, they weep, they beg. Do not confuse the noise for love. It is only withdrawal symptoms. They are not mourning you. They are mourning control. Here's where the storm rises. They will try everything: guilt, fury, pity, sudden tenderness. But these are not bridges. They are hooks, and if you stay detached, those hooks catch nothing. Let them rage until their own fire consumes them. Let them cry until the echoes tire of themselves. You don't owe anyone your stillness. You don't owe anyone a reason for your silence. As Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. To them, you will look cold, distant, unkind. Let them believe it. It is not your duty to convince them otherwise. Your duty is to guard your mind. Consider the worker whose colleague thrived on baiting him with sarcasm in every meeting. For years he defended himself, explained his choices, tried to soften the edge. But one day he said nothing. The colleague mocked. He simply noted. The colleague pressed. He delayed. Finally, the colleague erupted, and the worker stood, gathered his papers, and said calmly, "I'm not engaging in this," before walking out. No anger, no drama, no return. The colleague lost his rhythm. The game ended not in battle, but in absence, and absence proved stronger than any defense he could have mounted. From here, see the paradox. The less you respond, the more powerful you become. They once dictated the rhythm. They spoke, you chased. They pulled, you followed. They criticized, you explained. But flip it, now you set the pace. You respond when you choose. You disengage when needed. You don't chase. You don't soothe. You don't fight. You walk, quietly, strategically, without apology. No fireworks, no speeches. Just space, silence, distance. That is how power moves, without noise, without audience, without need. At this stage, grasp the sharpest truth. Silence is strategy. The sharpest edge needs no swing. When you master it, you become the most dangerous presence in any room. Not because you speak loudest, but because you no longer need to speak at all. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And here, you strip away their imagined control by removing what it fed on: your voice, your explanation, your endless clarifications. So, here is the seal. They cannot provoke what does not move. They cannot argue with what does not reply. They cannot control what does not yield. And once you learn to walk away without guilt, to sit in silence without apology, to guard your peace as a locked vault, the entire dynamic shifts forever. That is the move they never saw coming. That is the inversion. And that is where your real power begins. Entering the 5th chapter, imagine silence not as emptiness, but as a blade so sharp it never needs to be swung. This silence is not retreat. It is revenge, calm, disciplined, and devastating. You are still there, still present, still powerful, but no longer available for exploitation. Let them shout. Let them spiral. Let them choke on the quiet they once used to cage you, because now you have forged it into a weapon. And if one day you speak again, it will not be to beg. It will be to declare, on your own terms, in your own time. Now imagine words turned into armor, not affirmations, not soft comforts, but commands. Carve them into your mind like laws written on stone. 1. You do not have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You were not born to exhaust your body and soul for those who refuse to stand on their own. Self-destruction is not nobility. It is surrender. 2. No is a complete sentence. No context, no apology, no nervous laugh. Just no. If they cannot respect that, they were never dealing with you in good faith. 3. I am not available for that. Not sorry. Not I wish I could. Simply not available for chaos, for disrespect, for those who drain rather than build. 4. You've changed. Yes. The old you tolerated. The new you refuses. Let them call it selfishness. Let them call it cold. It means the game has ended. 5. I do not explain myself to those who are committed to misunderstanding. You have wasted too many nights arguing with walls. You need only your own respect. Here's where the ground hardens beneath your feet. 6. Peace is not passive. It is built, guarded, defended. If that makes you the villain in someone else's story, so be it. Seneca said, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." Peace requires courage. 7. Silence is strategy, not surrender. They think they've won because you don't shout back. They think you're weak because you walk away. They are wrong. You are silent because you've read the entire script, and you refuse to perform it anymore. 8. You can love someone and still leave. Love is not slavery. Love is not the slow erosion of your dignity. You can wish them well and never see them again. That is not cruelty. That is clarity. At this stage, your body begins to speak the truths your mouth has been afraid to utter. You lose sleep. You walk on eggshells. You give more, but it is never enough. You rehearse conversations that always collapse. You whisper to yourself in the dark, "This isn't right." And still you stay, telling yourself love will heal, patience will fix, loyalty will transform. But they don't change because they don't need to. As long as you stay, the act is unnecessary. Now imagine the collapse, not as failure, but as awakening. The anxiety, the exhaustion, the emptiness are not weakness. They are clarity breaking through the illusion. They are your system shouting, "This is not sustainable." You don't need more words. You don't need the perfect speech. You need permission, permission to save yourself, permission to enforce peace, permission to outgrow the version of you that accepted less. Here's the truth. You are not cruel when you walk away. You are not failing when you enforce peace. You are not selfish when you rescue yourself first. What is cruel is the sickness that comes from being someone else's endless cure. Walking away is not the end. It is the return. The collapse is not death. It is rebirth. Only after you stop hoping for who they could be and accept who they are can you begin again. Painful, yes. Messy, yes. But also freeing. So let them go. Let the fantasy die. Let your real self begin. Because only when you release what was false can you build what is unbreakable. And that, more than any word spoken in anger, is the silence that conquers. Advancing to the 6th chapter, see this clearly. Toxic people are not mysterious. They are predictable. They live on patterns, not genius. They exploit your hesitations, not their brilliance. The reason they seem to win is not because they are stronger, but because you keep following rules that were never written for your freedom. You play with emotion. They play with power. And so it is time to rewrite the book you live by. Not with soft advice, but with laws carved into stone. Here's where the first law strikes. When someone grows angry at your boundaries, it is not because you've wronged them. It is because your lack of boundaries once fed them, and now the well is dry. They are not mourning your cruelty. They are mourning their loss of control. The version of you who apologized for everything is gone. You evolved, and they lost access. That is victory, not guilt. Law 2 cuts just as deep. Loyalty without limits does not make you noble, it makes you a servant. You do not prove love through endurance, nor your worth through suffering. Those who truly respect you will not test how much pain you can take before breaking. Only users measure devotion by destruction, love with wisdom, not chains. Moving into the third law, see the burden you've carried. You are not responsible for another's healing. You can support, but you cannot carry. If they refuse to rise, they will use your strength to sink you. That is not care, it is debt collection disguised as need. Seneca wrote, "No man was ever wise by chance. Healing is not chance either. It is responsibility, and it must be theirs, not yours." Law 4 brings the mirror close. If you must argue for your value, you are already among the wrong people. Respect is known instantly. It is felt, not begged for. The moment you start pleading to be seen, you have handed over your crown. Take it back. Stand as Epictetus taught. Know first who you are and adorn yourself accordingly. If they cannot see your worth, you do not need them, you need distance. Here's where silence enters as Law 5. Silence is not emptiness, it is precision. It is not the lack of words, but the recognition that words will do nothing. You do not argue with a fire, you smother it. A single pause, a withheld answer, the quiet stare, these carry more force than 1,000 explanations. And silence, once mastered, is control. Law 6 frees your hands from the leash of guilt. Guilt is their chain, keeping you tethered to their comfort at the expense of your own. Every decision second-guessed, every instinct suppressed, every sacrifice twisted against you. Break the chain. You are not a villain for protecting your peace. You are a guardian of what is sacred, your time, your spirit, your clarity. From here, the 7th law closes one of the oldest traps. Closure is not a shared ceremony. It is a verdict you deliver to yourself. You do not need their agreement, their apology, their final conversation. Closure is the day you decide, this ends here. Say it, mean it, live it. That is final. Law 8 defines the borders of your kingdom. Time and access are privileges, never rights. Just because someone once had entry does not mean they keep it forever. The gate must close when trust is broken. Let them earn their way back if they ever can. If not, let them remain outside. The kingdom is yours to protect. At this stage, Law 9 stands like a pillar. Discipline is not coldness. It is strength. It is not about freezing your heart. It is about choosing when and how to engage. The one who stays calm while storms rage is the one who commands the field. The one who no longer dances when provoked is the one who owns the room. And finally, Law 10. You are not who you were. You have seen the pattern. You have named the game. You do not flinch when they try again, because you know what it is. This time you move only on your own terms, the door sealed shut. These laws are not cruelty, they are necessity. When someone feeds on your chaos, your boundaries become your war. Enforce them cleanly, enforce them without apology, enforce them without exception. Because the only peace that survives is the peace you are willing to guard. And that peace, once established, cannot be taken again. Entering the 7th chapter, imagine yourself a decade from now, still standing in the same place, bound to the same cycle. 10 years of explanations that fall on deaf ears. 10 years of apologies that buy no peace. 10 years of bending to avoid upsetting someone who never once breathed life into your lungs. Your friendships thinned out. Opportunities slipped through your hands. Your own voice silenced. Your spirit bent into polite exhaustion. And for what? a ghost, a fantasy, the shadow of who they once pretended to be. No one sings of the years you gave away. No one crowns you for loyalty to someone who was never loyal to your peace. That legacy ends with you hollow, smiling outwardly but broken within. But here's the inversion, the alternate ending, the one carved by those who refuse to be consumed. In this ending, the pain is not the grave, it is the signal fire. The collapse is not destruction, it is the catalyst. You stand amid the ashes and whisper, "No more." You stop shrinking to keep others comfortable. You stop performing in a play no one ever cared to watch. You stop explaining yourself to ears that were never listening. You turn not to punish, but to preserve. And in that turn, you are reborn. Now imagine this version of you. A figure who does not flinch at disapproval, who no longer dresses their no with apologies, who no longer begs for understanding. This version of you enforces boundaries instead of justifying them. This version does not chase love, but recognizes alignment. The bridge back to your old self lies in ruin, and out of its wreckage rises something colder, sharper, cleaner, peace. The kind of peace that does not bow for permission. The kind of peace that carries no guilt. The kind of peace that stands silent, unshaken, even when provoked. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Every insult, every betrayal, every collapse was not in vain. They became the forge where this new self was hammered. So when people look at you and say, "You've changed," let them. They are right. You have. You had to. Because survival without transformation is not survival. It is stagnation. Here's where the chorus of whispers begins. She's cold now. She thinks she's above us. She used to be so kind. Let them twist your name, paint you distant, call you selfish. Their narrative is not your responsibility. Their discomfort is not your debt. The version of you they recall is gone, and she will not return. What survives is not the one who endured everything, but the one who finally refused to endure anything that destroyed her. Think of legacy not as the tears you cried, but as the silence you mastered. Not as the people you pleased, but as the peace you protected. Not as the pain you absorbed, but as the line you finally drew. That is what remains long after the noise fades. That is what they will remember when your absence echoes louder than your presence once did. So the question becomes clear. When they speak of you years from now, what will they say? Will they sigh that you gave until there was nothing left? Or will they say, almost in awe, that you walked away and never looked back? Seneca reminded us, life is very short and anxious for those who forget the past, neglect the present, and fear the future. At some point, the only question left is, what does my future deserve? And the answer to that question decides everything. You owe nothing to those who fed on your strength. No speeches, no explanations, no return to old wounds. When the moment arrives, you leave in silence, not to punish, but to preserve. They may call you heartless, but what you found is clarity. You are not abandoning them, you are rescuing yourself. Let the quiet speak where words once failed. If this message resonates, subscribe for more and share your thoughts below with one phrase: hold the line. Remember, every ending you choose with courage opens the door to a stronger beginning waiting ahead.